Can I say, David, there's 8,600 long-term solutions that you've offered customers. Like many people across the state were holding their breath that these targets would eventually lead to something positive for people who are tearing their hair out night after night, who can't genuinely meet their mortgage payments. The targets were supposed to be a wake-up call to the banks, to tell you to get your act together. We've heard it from the financial regulator and people in that sector in the past. It was about getting your act together. Now, under that system, you were to issue 8,200 long-term offers. Now, 6,200 long-term offers. What we have seen, excluding the repossession of letters, engage or repossess letters as we'll call them, is that there's been 2,700. 2,700. Of those, 439 of them have been voluntary surrender. So we're down to 2,300. Genuine engagement for people who can stay in their house, who know now that there is an offer from AIB. You have not exceeded the targets. You haven't even reached the targets. You haven't even come halfway close to the targets. I put it to you that after waiting this length of time, that AIB has dramatically failed tens of thousands of customers who are in mortgage arrears by coming up with long-term sustainable solutions, and that this window dressing of the legal letters is about trying to reach targets. What we expected and hoped that wouldn't materialise was that if you set targets, the banks will reach it. We had the head of the central bank in here saying the exact same thing to this finance committee. His concern was if we set targets for the banks will reach them. Well, I think this is an absolute blatant, appalling way that AIB is disgraceful that AIB have issued 6,000 letters and trying to pretend that that's reaching the targets in some way, shape or form. I'm not saying that those that haven't paid or engaged for the last 3 years should be left off the hook, but don't pretend that this is offering long-term reasonable solutions.
Okay, you make a lot of statements which I'll fundamentally disagree with you, and if it requires us to have the discussion outside this meeting, we'll do it and in detail. But I would tell you that you're just blatantly ignoring the fact that 14,000 people who were in arrears this year we took out. You're patently ignoring the fact for statements like this that there is an additional 4,000 people who were taken out of arrears outside this quarter. If we just want to play statistical negatives with one quarter, fine, we can do that. I care about the substance of the solution we provide for this population of people. And we have taken 14,000 who were in arrears, came into arrears this year, we've taken them out. We have done 12,500 in our total, of which the 8.6 is what you were looking at. And we went through another 4,455 solutions for Deputy Doherty that we explained what was in there. So I would put to you quite the opposite. There is a target, there is a definition of those targets, we're meeting those targets. And in addition to that, just because the regulator didn't have a target in the first quarter, doesn't mean we should ignore the fact that 14,000 people have had a lot of assurance about the circumstance and 4,500 other solutions have been put in place. So I respect what you're saying in terms of the quarter, Deputy, but I would argue that that was a natural consequence of the regulatory target. It is not going to be the majority of cases. It represents 40% of the reality of what we've done this year. So in terms of the customer out there, I would like them to understand that the great majority of this, 60% of this plus, is good solutions for the customer. And as we roll forward, we won't have to deal with 5,000 legacy cases that have not paid for 3 years. So I think there's a more balanced and a broader picture, which, to be fair to the customer out there, ought to be articulated. But I'm happy to engage further, Deputy.